Hi there, and welcome back to another Papetti Math YouTube video tutorial, where today I am going to be teaching you Algebra 1. And in this video, we're going to begin our 8th chapter of this book, which is all centered around factoring. Now, if you remember from chapter 7, we were introduced to these things called polynomials, and we learned how to add, subtract, and multiply polynomials. In this chapter, we're going to focus on factoring these polynomials. And we're going to start our unit on factoring with lesson number 1, which is concerned only on GCF factoring. So let's read this top part together. It says in chapter 7, you were introduced to polynomials and you spent some time multiplying different kinds of polynomials, which is what we just said. You were given 2 or more polynomials, and by multiplying the polynomials, you created one polynomial in standard form. In this chapter, you'll begin with polynomials in standard form, and you will split the polynomials into factors of simpler expressions. Essentially, you will be working backwards with what you learned in the previous chapter, and in algebra, this process is called factoring. And it is one of the most important topics in the Algebra 1 curriculum. So let's take a look at exercise number 1. It says, think about the common factors of each of the terms of the binomial 6x to the third plus 2x squared. What is the greatest common factor of the coefficients of the terms? So we look at the coefficients and we see a 6 and a 2. And we should recall that the greatest common factor is the largest number that's divisible by both of these numbers. So we have 6 and 2. So our greatest common factor of those coefficients is going to be 2, because 6 is evenly divided by 2 and 2 is evenly divided by 2. And there's no other number that's larger than 2 that evenly divides both of those numbers. Now in part B, it says, what is the greatest common factor of the variables of the terms? So we have an x to the third and we have an x to the second. So the way I like to look at it is, what is the most amount of x's they both have in common? Do they both have at least an x? And you look at x to the third and an x to the squared, and the answer is yes, they both have at least an x. So then you up your game by 1. And do they both have at least an x squared is the next question. And the answer is yes, they both have an x squared. So then you go to the next level and you say, okay, do they both have at least an x cubed? And this one is an x cubed, but x cubed is greater than this one right here. So I'm going to go backwards because they don't both have at least an x cubed, but they do both have an x squared. So the greatest common factor of the variables is the x squared. So now in part C, it says, using parts A and B, express the greatest common factor of the binomial. And my greatest common factor is going to be 2x squared. Is my greatest common factor of 6x to the third plus 2x squared. Part D says, after the GCF is factored out of the original expression, what terms remain? So there's two ways to look at this. And I like to look at it the way where I'm going to write 2x squared as my GCF outside a set of parentheses. And then I'm going to ask myself, what do I have to multiply 2x squared by to get 6x to the third? Well, I need a 2 times 3 to get 6. And then x to the second times what will give me x to the third? And the answer is x to the second times x will give me x to the third. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to put a plus sign because I have a plus sign there. And then 2x squared times what will give me 2x squared in my original binomial. And I already have the 2x squared, so I just need to multiply by 1. And that's how we factor it out. Essentially, what you're doing is you're taking the binomial 6x to the third plus 2x squared, and you're dividing each of the terms by the GCF. So when you divide 6x to the third by 2x squared, you're going to be left with just 3x. And when you divide 2x squared divided by 2x squared, you're going to be left with just the 1. So this is how we write our factorization of this binomial right here. We factored out the GCF, and then that's what's left over. And that's what part E says, express the factorization as a product of the GCF and the remaining terms. So that's exactly what we're going to have written there, 2x squared times 3x plus 1. So in this exercise, we looked at a binomial that had a greatest common factor that wasn't only a constant, or a variable, but the GCF was a product of a constant and a variable. Our GCF was 2x squared. And we took this 2x squared and we did something called factored it out of the original expression. And if this video helped you, please give it a thumbs up, and you're now ready for exercise number 2. Thank you for watching.